Hi, good morning, everybody. We'll just give a minute and we will get started. Okay, so here we are again. Thank you all for being here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Carmelita Ruelca, and today is our first IBM guided tour for 2025. So you did not miss anything. We are all just starting here. So before we get started, I have a little announcement. I want to congratulate Douglas Gibbs. He has joined the IBM Technology Experts Lab as a global practitioner leader for SET and hardware. So Douglas, best of luck. We're going to miss you, but we all keep moving. And IBMI world moves really fast. So I want to welcome Yen Yule. She is joining our IBMI product management team. And this is our IBMI product management team for 2025. We have Steve Finnis, who focuses on Power HA and our BRMS, Dan Sunt, who is IBMI with Power VS, Linda Hirsch, Carmelita Ruelca, and now Yen, that we will be working on the whole portfolio. And I don't want to take much time because I know Steve always has great things to talk about. So while Steve gets his screen sharing, which I think I have stopped now, I want to introduce, what's going on? Oh, there you go. Good. So now I want to introduce Steve Will, who is our IBMI Chief Architect, and he will be kicking off our IBMI guided tours for 2025, talking about IBMI in 2025 and a strategic preview. I also want to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded, and we will post the recording on the deck by the end of the week. These recordings will be hosted on the common webpage. We will have a new link for the 2025 recordings, but the 2024 recording links is still available for you to watch. So please, if you have not done so, or you have a guided tour from last year that you still want to view, it's still available. And remember, you can always share that presentations with anybody. And with that, Steve, mic and screen is all yours. I do
All
not
right.
hear. Okay, there you are.
Yep. Just coming off mute and putting the camera on. You can see me, you can see my presentation, you can hear me, right?
Correct. We're ready to go.
Perfect. Let's get going. All right. Welcome everybody to 2025. I know we're into the middle of February already. I have been trying to figure out how I can communicate to you what an exciting year this is going to be without doing a bunch of pre-announcing. So there's sort of a restructured look to how I'm communicating what we're doing in IBMI. I don't really think the strategy that we have has changed at its core. I'll talk a bit about that. But there are new things happening in every strategic area. And so I want to first ground us in what it is that IBMI is known for doing, that we continue to do, and then we'll talk about advancements in those areas and others. So, IBMI. You're all IBMI folks, I'm pretty sure. So you know that when people think about us as a platform, both historically where we've come from and how we're used now, they tend to think of us in this way. The left-hand icon is meant to represent the data that runs businesses that's on IBMI in DB2 there is no better transactional platform because we created an architecture that was built on the idea that everybody's going to need to do relational database transactions to be able to run their business and to be able to manage their business properly. And we're a platform that focused at an architectural level at securing things in ways that other platforms have to build on top of operating systems. Instead, it's integrated into the whole way we do things, right? That's what we have traditionally been known for. Of course, the business applications that sit on top of that, and we will cover applications, don't worry, okay? But from the point of view of trying to describe what a platform does, data and security, clearly important. Now, I would say that over the course of the past 20 years, and particularly over the course of the past 15, another thing that we've really been known for is our ability to create an available platform. Now, some might argue, hey, you have been super reliable. So, I mean, since the days of the AS400, remember those television ads you used to have that talked about how an AS400 could be locked in a closet or drop down the stairs and it would continue running? Yep, yep, yep. I'm not saying we don't have great reliability. And of course, reliability allows you to run a lot more than the competitive platforms that we faced then and face now. But the requirement from our customer base to continuously be running has spread up and down the line. And so we've had a lot of investment that we've made in making sure that when you want to be sort of continuously available or as close to highly available as you possibly can, as close to continuously available as you possibly can, we have stepped up to the plate. Our clients who want to do that sort of thing have a lot of different options, many of which are enabled by the integrated technology that we have in the platform. And so, again, I think in our customer base, if you look at what we're known for, the ability to be available for business is key. And probably in the last 10 years or so, when people talk about cloud and IBM, they've had to understand that we've been in a managed environment through many of our partners for a long time, but we have also grown into the ability to both be in a cloud, IBM in a cloud, as well as IBM applications being able to reach out and get value from clouds. Okay, so today's IBM has all of these sort of cornerstone items, cornerstone technologies that we are fairly well known for. The cloud one, I'm sure that there is a fairly large set of our customer base based on our surveys who still isn't considering doing IBM in a cloud, but I can tell you that we have integrated a great deal of technology that is cloudish technology used to do clouds, even in our customer sets where they're doing totally disconnected from anything environment, because how we manage the platform, how we prepare our application enablement, et cetera, is all based on clouds. Now, what I try to do from this point then is to talk about some of the things that we've done and we're going to be doing in each of these spaces. And I think the stuff that we've been doing, you'll recognize. So for example, right, we focus on high-speed transactions. We focus on integrated capabilities, data capabilities. And these days, when you're talking about data capabilities, things that people might have to add on top of their data, okay, analytics. We've embedded a great deal of analytics into DB2 and of course, we allow our data to be used by analytics engines that are outside of IBM if you needed to. We've embedded some AI, the geospatial Watson geospatial stuff that we added into DB2 is that, and it's just the beginning of what we're going to be doing. Performance optimization is all part of the architecture of how DB2 works and how we use the single level store that's underneath us to optimize the performance of your data. That is an ongoing set of capabilities. Every time we do a new technology refresh, we have capabilities that probably touch on those things. In security, we have a level of integrated encryption, again, that often has to be added on top of other operating systems, integrated security and auditing so that you can lock down and prove to auditors that you have locked things down. again, most of the time that we're doing new things in releases and so on, it's related to that sort of security that you don't have to worry about adding to the platform because it's integrated in there. And of course, when we talk about availability, not only do we have our Power HA high availability configurations that continue to get more and more complex capabilities, or simple if you need it, okay? But we also have the DB2 Mirror continuous availability technology that we first put into 7.4 and enabled with the DB2 Mirror product. But that technology itself, well, I don't want to get ahead of myself, is enabling a bunch of other uses for mirroring capabilities. But continuous availability is being adopted by some of our very largest clients so that they can know that they're always going to be available. And then in the cloud space, we've exposed a great deal of what you can do to get information from IBM I and to get management capabilities in cloud-like ways. Again, whether you're connected to a cloud and managed by a cloud, we are using that sort of architecture so that whether you're being managed outside from an outside source or whether you're being managed yourself, we can have one common way of doing things. And of course, IBM I is available in clouds, partner clouds for sure, but also IBM's cloud, the Power Virtual Server. None of this should be new news if you care about these areas and so on, but all of them continue to get enhancements. That's why we do technology refreshes a couple times a year, so that as advancements need to be made in these spaces, we can add them and get them out available to you. But there are things coming. Again, I am restrained by what I can actually announce, but there are anchor functions, one particular anchor function in security for the upcoming release that we're going to be talking about for a long time. And we're going to be talking a lot about it when we get to that next release. Security is going to be a big part of what we do and talk about and help people understand how to use when we do the next release. We are investing in DB2 for making sure that the data that you have that runs your business is where you need it, secure and integrated, but also available and reaching out and touching other places where that data might be useful. That's as far as I can go here. We recently introduced, so you may not be aware of this, but we recently introduced a new capability with the DB2 Mirror technology that allows you to run in your on-premises environment while in the background you are migrating your workload into a cloud. So for clients who want to move workloads, whether it's the whole system or a piece of the system, into a cloud, one of the issues that they've had is that there typically tends to be a period of downtime when you stop using your on-prem system and then move over, because you have to move all of that data and you kind of need to make sure that you are at a good point to do that. Well, if you can have yourself mirroring and then make a cutover, it can be a lot less downtime from your on-prem use of a workload to your in the cloud workload. And again, that uses DB2 Mirror technology. It's not so that you can run in a continuous availability environment, but the same technology under the covers is mirroring as you go along, much like you do in a continuous availability environment, so that then you can make a cutover and reduce the amount of time that you're down. Well, I can tell you that we're going to apply that DB2 Mirror technology to more than just moving to a cloud. You might be able to imagine, for example, that you might want to move from one system to another system, and you might want to be able to do what we just were talking about with a cloud. Now, there might be really good reasons to do that, and so we're investing in that. So we realized when we did the continuous availability use case for DB2 Mirror that that same technology could be applied to a lot of different availability cloud environments. And so the team has been working very hard to make sure that that technology can be used multiple ways. All right. So this is what we are known for. This is what we continue to invest in, absolutely. But people have been expecting us, and we have been talking a bit publicly about how AI is going to fit into that. And so I want to, as I do my preview of this year, talk about a bunch of these things, and I will not leave before talking about some of AI and how that fits in. All right. So now that you know the technologies that I want to be talking about, let's lay it out into how we deliver this. I have been showing a version of this roadmap for a long time. Ever since 7.5 came out, it's the center of this roadmap, but we are about to change the roadmap again, like we do every 3 years. Very, very soon, we're going to start talking about this year's IBM I next major release. Okay, all of you should be expecting a major release this year because we do 3 years between major releases. I can't announce everything or anything specifically right now, but you all should be expecting that. So when we're going to do a preview of 2025, I simply have to say, you can all expect there's going to be another major release. But as you're aware, we don't just put things out in releases. And so there are things coming out between releases. The Migrate While Active, for example, came out at the end of last year. People are beginning to use it this year to move to cloud. So there's a lot of capabilities that we do that aren't tied to that next release. Nevertheless, when we start exposing, explaining what the next major release is going to be, we will also talk about the things that we've released recently and the things that are coming next. Now, usually then when I put a chart out like this, we also talk about what's coming in the future. Usually I don't put a date up there, but for the purposes of this preview into the future, 2025 plus 3 makes sense as the year that we would do the next major release. And we're currently planning that next major release. There are people in our organization who have been working already on the cornerstone elements of that because, of course, we're getting close to GAing the release. It's going to come out this year. So the development has moved on to that next release. And then there will be one beyond that, and there will be one beyond that. And there's just no end to this. Okay. So I talked a bit about what technologies we've been investing in and what we've got to move into in AI. We line up really, really well with what Power is saying about what Power needs to do. Now, they communicate things differently, but if you just look at this from the ground up, Power is investing in core business systems. We are a core business system. We contribute significantly to the Power business. We contribute more software profit than any other part of the Power business. We've been growing as a platform, as Power has, by the way, for the past several years, and we've contributed very nicely to that. So they are investing. Power, as a part of IBM, is investing in what do those core business systems need. And you can see some of the things there are natural for us: performance and scaling, availability, security I talked about, and AI acceleration. And you'll hear more about that not only from me today, but then as Power moves forward, you'll hear about even more of that AI stuff. Then if you jump up to the next box, right, we talk about modernizing our workflows, not just doing application modernization, though that continues to be a key part of what IBM I does and IBM I customers are doing, but applying artificial intelligence and machine learning to making modernization easier to accomplish and providing more tools that help you move forward. And then top of that is distributed hybrid infrastructure, right? Clients who want to have their IBM I on-prem, fine, cool. There are a lot of different ways to do that, charge for it, etc. People who want to put their stuff in a cloud, cool, fine, you can do that. A lot of our clients are doing distributed, where some of their stuff is on-prem and some of that is in the cloud. And we try to make sure that everything that we do can be consumed in any of those ways without any disruption. All right. Now, the next chart should look pretty familiar to any of you who listen to me talk about strategy. I have built this chart and modified it slightly over time, but the core strategy of our platform remains that whatever solution providers need, we want to make sure we're ahead of what they need, and we make sure that technology is available. These days, of course, everybody's moving to mobile interfaces. Some people are still using web interfaces. Some people are still using green screen interfaces. But we've got to help clients move forward to not only use those interfaces, but to be able to do transactions that have some machine learning to them, some AI, et cetera. Okay, we've got to give you choices on how you move from here to there. So it may be choices on what languages you use or how you do your development. But whatever we do, we integrate. All of that is as it has been, updated with a little bit of information about AI, for example. We'll probably update with a couple of key new features when the next major release comes out to highlight where they fit in this strategy. That's all, again, if you've been listening to me talk about strategy, that part remains consistent. It's a matter of what technologies are you working on? And exactly what do we want to do with those technologies? And that's where this other part of the strategy that I sometimes talk about has been so critical for the last year and a half or so. IBMI is a collaborative enterprise in many senses. Of course, IBM produces IBMI. It's not like the community produces it, but you all, as a community, care about the platform and have really great ideas. And so we make a point to reach out to our advisors and special users who have specialities, ISVs who are really good in particular spaces, to get a feel for how can IBM invest in IBMI in a way that we provide core capabilities that are important to everybody, and then leave plenty of room for solution providers, ISVs, customers themselves to add differentiation things on top of that. And so our collaborative strategy has been particularly visible inside our development over the course of the last 2, 3, 4 years because of how much input we've been getting on things like DB2 Mirror, on things like the AI stuff that we're working on, and of course, Navigator and ACS, because there's a whole group of people who get to see new things, test new things out, and give new ideas. You all are part of that, and you all have a way to submit ideas to us, and we look at those and try to make sure that we take your ideas and implement the ones that have tremendous value across the entire platform. We also work to try and take the pulse of our community. Forcha has done now, is this 9 years, 10 years? I don't know, in a row of this marketplace survey that we work with them and IT Jungle on. And so we continually look at and try to evaluate, are we doing the kinds of things our customers are doing right now and want to do in the future? This is just an example. I'm going to focus on a couple of specific things that came from that survey into the future, but we believe that based on all of our interaction with our clients, both in individual sessions as well as going to conferences and so on, we have a pretty good idea about what our clients' top concerns are and where we need to invest. And what we've been driving towards is making sure that IBMI of tomorrow or today is not just what IBMI was in the past. So I have what I call a big animal picture. Big animal picture just means to me that I don't try and go get pretty pictures. I just sort of draw with boxes to describe for you a concept. So what has IBMI been viewed as and used as traditionally? This fits well with that first chart that I built with all those images. Our clients count on us for transaction-based applications, creating and using DB2 data, right? That's what we are. And as a platform, we've wrapped that with an architecture that has security and integrity. That's how people use us. That's how people view us. When they want to do application development, they've largely used tools that are IBM sourced, right? So whether in the old days, SU and PDM, or Rational Developer for I, or now the Code for IBM stuff, there's a core set of tools that IBM has been behind. Then there are ISVs who also build on top of the core stuff that we have in the platform. Nothing wrong with those, but I'm just saying most of our client base has looked to us for the tools that they use to develop, debug, support applications, etc. And when they manage our platform, they manage it based on IBM I-based tools, and they focused on this stuff running on-prem on our hardware platform. Now, of course, over the last 15 years in particular, as people have done application modernization, they have added open source that's integrated into IBM I in PACE to allow them to do this. So I don't want to say that nobody has done anything beyond what they did 20, 25, 30 years ago. They certainly have. But they've tended to think of us as this platform that sits by itself, not connected to other things, and most of what comes to us in a very integrated IBM way. Well, now let's focus a bit on what our clients are saying their concerns are. Cybersecurity, skills, modernizing applications, high availability, all of those things are critically important to our client base. And we know that. And so we've been investing in all of those. And I'll talk a bit about how we're investing even more as we get further in this presentation. And because those are our client concerns, that doesn't mean that they are stopped, that there's a roadblock because of these things. No, there are clients, this is their concern, but they are making progress. So we have client stories out there in the world of people who've needed to move forward. They've needed to move off sign-on into freeform RPG. They've needed to do high availability with banking. They've needed to move into a DevOps environment using CI/CD and using Git as the repository. They've needed to be able to do things with geolocation and tablet interfaces. And all of that is possible because of the investments that we have done. So just because those are specific concerns of our clients doesn't mean that they're stopped. It means that they have been pushing us to make sure that they can do those things. And so we have client stories out there. The link is on this page. You'll have the presentation. You can go to it, right? IBM I client stories, easy to find. There are stories out there about how clients have taken the investments that we've made and moved into that area, moved into those using tablets, doing CI/CD, etc. Okay. One of the key things, though, that is clearly influencing where we need to be in the platform is how much artificial intelligence is going to be a part of what IT is going to need to care about. And already in the most recent Fortress survey, you can see that 30% of our clients who responded said that if I'm going to list 5 things that matter to me, 30% of them said one of those 5 is artificial intelligence and machine learning. That's up significantly from last year and up way significantly from the previous year. A lot of clients want to do that. And that allows me to then build to why we've been behind the scenes trying to modify how people can look at us in the future. Of course, we're going to be a transaction-based platform, creating and using DB2 data, but we need to integrate that data, make it possible for people to take that data and the transactions that are running people's businesses and integrate that data with sources that are in a cloud, with AI users and so on, so that AI can operate on and analyze that data. Of course, we're going to do that in a secure way with high integrity. So that's not changing. The architecture there doesn't change, but what we have to do is adapt how we're taking advantage of that data to more than just the high-performing transactions. And we know that people are going to want to do this not only on-prem, but it's clearer every day how many people want to do that with Power running, IBM I running in a cloud environment. Now, as people do their development, one of the keys that they have mentioned to us in that customer survey, and again, we've been talking to people, we know that, they need to be able to hire programmers out of college who may have never heard of our platform. And if they're going to do that, well, we need to make sure that it's easy for those new people to IBMI, especially new developers to IBMI, to bridge the gap between the IBMI skills they're going to need to learn and what they learned when they were somewhere else, at college, for example. And so the application development that we're going to be enabling better in the future is going to be based on this idea that they who come into this business not knowing IBMI's specific do have a great deal of skill with open source technologies, with the programming styles and tools that are available elsewhere in the world. And we're going to and have been making sure that that is an easy thing to do on IBMI. Furthermore, some of the skills issues are people don't know how to manage IBMI in IBMI's unique way. And so we need to be able to make it possible for people to manage IBMI, learning how to use things in tools that are more open. And again, this is some of the investment that we have been making. Because we know people are going to have skills coming into the environment that expect cloud, that need things to run in cloud. We know that they're going to want to apply AI to those transactions and that data. And we know that the experience that most people have with open source is open source running on Linux in environments. And so we're going to have to make it easier than ever to do open source in a Linux-like way. Again, some of this is clear if you've been following what we've been doing, the stuff we've been doing, for example, with VS Code-based editors, the stuff we've been doing with Ansible, that all fits into this. So it's not like this is only a future-looking thing, but is somewhat future-looking, because I don't think you could reasonably claim that people who've done open source programming on other platforms can just drop in and do it without having to learn anything new about IBMI. We'd like to make it a little easier for people to do that. And again, this is not a pure future thing. There are clients who have used those investments we've made to do automated manufacturing tied to old RPG programs, people who've been able to use AI tools like Alexa to turn voice requests into SQL and RPG calls and get that delivered to them through an Alexa. People who have been able to take the ability for us to do web services in programs and connect that to RPG and COBOL programs to be able to integrate with things like Amazon. There are a lot of things like Amazon that need services as the interfaces, and being able to do new cool AI things within existing manufacturing, distribution, and delivery mechanisms. So all of that is still work underway. We continue to invest more in that. Now, one thing that I did in the last few months that may be useful to you, and so I include it here, is just sort of a one-page version of the strategy that I've laid out for you to this point, so that if you need to explain to somebody in your company, maybe you're getting a new boss or you've got a new employee who's joining you on the team, and you want to say, this is kind of what IBM talks about when they talk about IBMI. Here's that page. Almost everything that I put on this page, I've said already, so I'm not going to go over it again. That's why I created this. In case it's useful to you, you're welcome to use it. All right. Now let's go back and look a little bit more at some of the data that we get from this survey and how that is influencing not only what we've done over the past 3 or 4 years, but what we're going to be talking about a lot this year. When clients look at modernizing their applications, they don't just look to ISVs. Of course, most of our client base has ISV packages that run a key part of their business. So whether it's one of the banking ISVs, or whether it's SAP, or whether it's Infor, whatever, okay, there is a lot of our client base that has one or more ISV packages that run key parts of their business. But 70% of our clients also have in-house applications, in-house code. It's either modifications of those ISV packages or things that the ISV package doesn't do and they need to add that. And then, of course, there are customers of ours who run on purely homegrown applications. So whether it's somebody enhancing or modifying or supplementing an ISV package, or whether they've written it all themselves, there's a lot of our client base that needs help with writing applications. And there are a lot of vendors in our community who help them do that, but there's core stuff that everybody or nearly everybody takes advantage of from the IBM I space. And that is one of the things that, again, we use this survey as a touch point. We hear this all the time when we talk to clients individually and at conferences. We hear this all the time. I've got code. I've got to deal with making it do what we need it to do today, modernizing it. So when people do new things on IBM I, when they are adding new business capabilities or modernizing what they currently have, what programming languages do they use? This is always a good checkpoint for us to have. Hopefully you're all aware of this, right? RPG is the most commonly used language on our platform, and that is true when you're doing new development. It is not just for support, it's when you're doing new development. But thank goodness, lots and lots of people also use SQL. Of course, people have to do CL to do some things on their platform. Okay, and then there's the list of open languages and COBOL that also have significant parts of what they do. When they do RPG, they do it primarily in the free format ILE RPG that looks so much like the other languages that people learn in school that it's easy for a brand new hire to pick up ILE RPG because it is so similar to what they've learned. Okay, so that is another point that we wanted to make sure that people are adopting this stuff, and at least according to the people who responded to the survey, that is true. Now, of course, the fact that they're writing new stuff in ILE RPG doesn't negate the fact that they probably have pre-ILE RPG, or at least fixed format ILE RPG, that they have to maintain even if they don't do new development in that space. So we are well aware of that. So that's one part of what's informing us on what we're investing in related to programming on IBM I, creation of applications, updating of applications, modernizing applications. Another part of it is what the tools are that they're using, okay? And again, when we asked this question with them, with that survey, we were not asking about ISV tools to do development and modernization. We were specifically curious about how people were using the tools that we have put our effort behind. Okay, so the other write-in stuff may have gotten some of those ISV things, but I just want to focus you on one really important part of the responses here. Okay, RDI has been in the market, well, certainly for 15 years. I mean, it's been called Rational Developer for a long, long, long time, okay? But it came from a set of tools before that. And despite the fact that that has been out there as a tool that's capable to do modern development and has a great many functions, 54% of our respondents say that they use it. Well, you can see that basically tied with that is the Visual Studio Code, right? The Code for IBM I, in particular, open source project that we put a lot of support behind. We don't own it, it's an open source thing, but we put a lot of support behind, is now equal to RDI. And my guess, by this time next year, it will overtake it. This is a sea change in how people are doing coding on IBM I. And I think it's important that the community, those of you listening, understand that there's nothing wrong with this in our opinion. I know we make money on RDI. I get that. But when you come out of school these days, I am being told over and over again, you know how to do a VS Code based development environment for whatever coding language you have. And because Code for IBM I is built not only to, fit into that environment, but also make it easy to work with the languages that IBMI uses, in particular RPG, but other languages as well, that is a natural place for those people to land. And that has been a real boon, a real benefit for people who hire people out of school who don't know RPG. But if they are willing to give them as their development environment something that they're used to using, they can get into it so much more quickly. And that's helped us make decisions on how we're going to support doing application development and application modernization and artificial intelligence into the future of IBMI. So you should be aware. And I don't think this comes as a big surprise if you've been listening to me talk about Code Assistant, but we'll get to Code Assistant before we're done too. All right. So now remember that strategy that I laid out before you before. This is still the strategy, the solutions, choices, integration, but I'm applying it specifically to the things that we want to do related to IBM I and AI. So we want to make sure that we have generative AI assistance so that people who are developing solutions for IBM I can take advantage of that. We want to embed AI into DB2 and make it easy for DB2 data to be shared with AI environments. We want solution providers who are building their own AI features to be able to use Power and its capabilities and IBMI underpinnings to be able to do those solutions, do those AI solutions more efficiently and very tightly integrated if they want them to be. We want to make it easier for people to deploy and manage AI workloads that are connected to IBMI. And we want to allow people to have assistance in managing and anticipating issues. You won't see necessarily an announcement about every one of these things in 2025, but we are setting ourselves up with the underlying underpinnings that each of these can be addressed as they become more necessary in our environment and as they become more mature in their technologies. Okay, so we are within the confine or context, excuse me, not confines, context of our strategy, looking at how AI is going to fit into this. And we think it's just one more set of technologies that's going to enhance how solutions are built, the choices you have on the platform, and we'll try to integrate things so that you don't have to become an expert in building AI platforms in order to take advantage of that inside of IBMI or connected to your IBMI workloads. So all of this has been that strategic preview that I was talking about. Now I want to get into a bit of what's going to be coming, particularly this year, without doing the announcements that we're going to highlight a little later in the spring. So we're due for a major new release. I talked to you about that already. IBMI is going to have to support new systems as Power comes out with new systems. So we're going to have to do that. I've talked a bit about DB2 mirror-based technology that's been applied to helping people migrate workloads to the cloud if they want to. And I've given you a hint that that same kind of technology is going to be applied to more users through more use cases, more examples of how that technology can help clients reduce downtime, even if they're not using it specifically to do a mirrored continuous availability environment. We are investing in AI-related technology. We obviously have the DB2 stuff, the geospatial analytics stuff, but I have been talking since Common Power Up last year about creating an RPG code assistant, and there is work going on there, and I'm going to be talking about that on the next few pages. So you'll get a little bit of an update there, even beyond the update that I gave back in December. Oh, by the way, if you want more information about that and you didn't attend my guided tour in December about the RPG Code Assistant, that's one of those guided tours that Carmelita mentioned is available on the Common website for guided tours in 2024. Again, if you want more information, please go and get the information, listen to that stuff, because I'm only going to be able to touch briefly on it today. And then there are going to be new features that the IBM community has requested in the technology refreshes and, of course, in the major release when that comes, because we continuously are evaluating the ideas that have been submitted to us and the suggestions that have come from our advisory councils on new DB2 capabilities, new SQL services, new Navigator and ACS stuff, security things beyond the big thing that we're going to be doing. All of that stuff gets new enhancements this year as we do our announcements and go and participate in the conferences. You'll get the details behind all of that. All right. I've saved myself a few minutes in this presentation to talk about the Code Assistant for RPG project, because that is one of the key things that people are going to be paying attention to, and I'm going to be talking about a lot this year. It's also the thing that I get contacted about most via emails and other mechanisms, LinkedIn, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so one of the things that I included last December, I want to make sure all of you have access to these links. We did issue a statement of direction about a Code Assistant for RPG in October of last year. I'll show you a picture of it in a minute. And then I've been talking about it at conferences. I did a session at Tech Exchange. There was a Tech Channel piece that was done on it. I've talked about it and other people, but I've been kind of the primary voice about Code Assistant for RPG at events around the world. Some of my team has been able to do that as well. And if you want to keep up to date with that, this is where you should look. I am trying every time that I have something that I can share publicly to make it available in some way and talk about it on LinkedIn, point people to it from X, and then blogs. But I'm also getting interviewed by folks in the press industry, whatever. So look for those as well. I mentioned the statement of direction. It doesn't really give you much in terms of what we're trying to do, but it is the public statement of direction that we're going to be doing something like this. I've updated this next slide for those of you who did see my December thing to talk about what can you expect from this Code Assistant for RPG. The very first thing that we're focusing on, the thing that the first major release of this thing will have as its primary function, is the ability to explain existing RPG. So the use cases of this are fairly obvious, but let me just kind of set the stage here. Many of you, when you have to turn a piece of code over to a new developer, would like to have a tool that could examine what that source code is doing and then explain to the developer, this is what it's doing. In particular, if you have a new developer, while they're coding it and working with a piece of code that already exists, you'd like to be able to have them ask an assistant, what is this code doing, while they're working with it. And so we are going to have a VS Code-based IDE extension that will allow you as a programmer to get that kind of information. I'm going to show you show you a screenshot when I'm done with this page. So just be aware, the words I'm saying, I'm trying to lead up to that. Okay. So we are still under development. The way that we are doing explain is different than I thought it was when I first conceived of showing you guys something like this back at Power Up. So we have done a lot of talking with programmers, RPG programmers, about what things they would find useful in terms of explanation. And so one of the key things is, if I'm new to this piece of code, whether I'm new to RPG or not, what I'd like to be able to do is highlight a piece of code and ask the assistant, explain this to me. I'll show you something like that in a minute. Or I'd like to be able to click a button near something that might need explanation and just have the tool explain this region to me or this thing to me? Yep, we're going to be able to do that. I could try and point that out when I go to the thing. Now, another way that I've been showing people we might do this is being able to click on an RPG source file, for example, in a Git repository, and then say, please explain this thing, whatever is inside this source file, to me. We're probably going to be able to do that. That was kind of the first thing that I showed people we might want to be able to do. Probably we're going to be able to do that. It's not implemented yet, just by the way we've done things so far. But that's a reasonable thing for people to ask for, and we're probably going to be able to do that. But people have asked beyond that, particularly people who know more about large language models and how they might be used. Are you going to be able to do RAG, retrieval augmented generation, where we give you some more information, and so you incorporate that information into the context of the answer that's coming out? I don't know. I don't know if we can do that. We still have to work with all of the folks who are involved in training and delivering the model to figure out whether we can do that. So I'm just saying, right now, there are things we can answer fairly confidently. There are still things, because we're under development, that we can't answer for the first release, but we're learning more all the time. So as I have said before, if you've heard me talk about this, one of the important things that we all need to understand when we're using large language models is how you ask the question is a big driver of the kind of answer that you get. If any of you have played with ChatGPT and asked it to do something and it didn't quite give you what you wanted, so you changed the way you asked the question, you've seen that happen. It will answer with different words, different explanations, different examples, depending on how you ask things. And so one of the things we're doing as we design this is asking for user feedback on the sort of canned explanations they would like, right? I'm a brand new user to RPG. I would like you to explain it to me like I'm a new user. I'm an experienced ILE RPG programmer. I would like details about this particular thing that might help me. There are different ways to ask the questions, and we're trying to make sure that people get an easy way to ask that, and then access to the model. So if you want to do something that we didn't anticipate, you can do that. All right, so for example, what might this look like? I was given a couple of screenshots, so I'm going to show you sort of under development, what does this look like? So suppose you are in a piece of RPG code and you have that procedure there and you want to understand what it does. Now, if you are an experienced RPG programmer, you know what it does. If you're not experienced in RPG, you may not quite understand what it does. If you highlight, as has been done there, and then ask the assistant, explain the selected code, then it will tell you that this is the selected code is a procedure, it has this name, and it's used to do this, okay? That is one of the capabilities that we're clearly going to have in the explain part of this assistant. But if you look over there above that code, you'll also see, for example, that there's a little light bulb there. There are 3 different examples of things that you might want to do with that code. So explain it, summarize it, document it. That is another key feature that our users have said they'd like. Many of the programs that are out there written for IBM I and RPG are not particularly well documented. And so wouldn't it be nice if you could ask your assistant to create documentation, comments that could be inserted directly in to explain this better? Not only do you know what it does because it explained it to you, but it inserted that as a comment. And if it's not exactly right, but you understand that, you can change the comment. Okay, so it's not going to be an automated thing that will be there and it'll get it right every time, but it'll get you very close. And that's kind of the way it's going to work. Okay, so we know these kinds of things are the kinds of things people are going to want to have integrated into their development environment and help from this AI large language model that understands RPG and RPG programming. That's the kind of thing you're going to get. All right. When is this going to be available? That's one of the most frequently asked questions that I have. I still cannot tell you exactly. I can tell you that by the end of the first quarter of this year, we're going to have just a few outside people testing our user interface, seeing how our model is being trained, etc. Then sometime in the second quarter, we're going to demonstrate this to the outside world. So there will be sort of a public unveiling of what does it look like and how are you doing it. And then there will be a more public usage of it where we're hoping pretty much anybody who wants to see it will be able to see it. We might have to limit it because this is going to be running in a cloud somewhere and somebody's got to sign up for every time we use it and so on. So it may not be everybody in the world, but it'll be a lot wider than just a few people. And then sometime in the second half of 2025, we are going to GA this RPG code assistant with Explain. And then we will have a cadence of doing new things inside that code assistant as we go along. And the new things we do are going to probably come at a much faster pace than twice a year. Because once we know how to train a model to do Explain, then we will move on to those other things that we want to be able to do as soon as the model can handle doing it. All right. If you are excited about the things that are going to be coming and you want to know more and find out about more, where should you go? Go to the conferences this year, right? Power Up and Common Europe Congress. We're going to have people talking about what's in the new release, what's this AI stuff we're doing. If you are a larger client or a client that often goes to Think, there will definitely be some things that'll be talked about there. A bunch of partners, ISVs, and user groups are setting up meetings, assuming there's going to be new stuff to talk about, and they're trying to line up people who are going to be able to talk about them. So look for those things. Of course, we will do webcasts, the guided tours. I'm going to point you at that page. Hopefully you all know about it because you got here somehow. But then as we get closer to announce, there's going to be specific things set up for that. And we already have one scheduled where I and a couple of members of the community are going to be talking about the cool things that are going to be incorporated in the future release. And then, of course, there's a bunch of links to things that might be useful to you, both the homepage, support cycle, etc. This is the guided tours page. And this is just the beginning of what we're doing for guided tours this year. All right. So as I look towards the future, one of the things that I have as my goal is to make sure that every year when we ask our customers, do you get a better return on investment from IBMI than you get from other servers, that we can have this overwhelming yes, right? We do that not only based on the strategy that we have to create solution-focused capabilities, because the solutions are what people use our platform for, not just to give you choices and so on, but we absolutely cooperate, collaborate with our community to know that we're headed in the right direction. If you have any feedback for us about things you think we should be working on, the ideas portal is there. You can do that. You can contact us at conferences. You can contact us via other mechanisms, because we're there to do the future for you that we've done to this point, right? The platform that makes your job easy, that is a better return on investment than anywhere else. I think I've run basically out of time. Carmelita, were there any questions that came in that you think I can quickly answer, or should we just do them all offline?
We'll do them all offline. It will
Okay.
be easier.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you all for attending. I am really excited about what we're going to be able to tell you this year. Hopefully this has given you a taste of the kinds of things, and there will be a couple surprises that I didn't even want to hint about. So thanks again for attending, and look forward to seeing you out there this year, wherever we may meet.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll meet again next week. Take care. Bye.